All right, welcome everybody. John King is over there. Good morning, Mr. King.
Good morning, Peter.
All right, I'm Peter Christian. Joining us in studio, one of my favorite people. Because
do you guys say that all the time?
The reason I say that is because you and I have worked together long before the University of Montana.
Indeed.
With the DNRC. Mm-hmm. And I remember whenever something was going on with a fire, I had your number, and you almost always answered. I mean,
and I still do.
Yeah,
especially,
I know.
Well, it's because I see that it's you, and I say, "Oh, the boss is calling. I better pick up right now."
That's my favorite person.
Because Peter will just sulk if I don't.
I will say. So you were one of the first PIOs I remember calling. One of a bevy, 5 or 6, right? And I remember being like, "Wow, the PIO that does the DNRC stuff is so happy compared to all the other public information officers."
I wasn't yet jaded. Maybe that's what it was.
So.
No, I really enjoyed my time doing that, fire information for the DNRC, and now I'm over at the University of Montana having just as much fun.
And speaking of fires,
Different kind. No, I tell people that as well sometimes.
I mean, there are all sorts of fires to put out over there. But anyway, tumultuous time right now, and did you have a hint, Paula, that when you first took the job for President Engstrom in the president's office, that any of this was going to be happening in the future, or is it just you roll with the punches?
I think you roll with the punches. Certainly, I didn't have an inclination. I mean, like everybody, I had read stories about the University of Montana, and I mean, quite honestly, that was incentive for me to want to come back to U of M. I'm an alumna of the university, and I thought here was a chance that I could plug in and help and maybe offer my services to U of M and to the greater community from a different perspective. And after 22 years with the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation, I decided to make a move. But it's just been really fun and educational. And boy, I'll tell you, when you're a student, you don't understand half of the things that that are involved in running an institution like the University of Montana. And so it's been very enlightening and eye-opening to me in that regard.
So what is the atmosphere like among the administration now? Is it like exciting, or is it like everyone's looking for axes falling from the sky?
Is
what?
Everybody walking on eggshells or what?
Not at all. In fact, to the contrary, I really believe that the team over there, and when I say the team, I'm talking about administration, faculty, staff. I mean, folks are students as well. Folks are really forward-thinking and saying, what is next for the University of Montana, and how do I be part of that storyline, and how do I contribute to that success? So I really, we are moving forward with our strategic planning efforts. We are moving forward, of course, now with a national search for the next president, and Dr. Sheila Stearns is stepping in the interim. So I would say folks are moving forward and continuing the good work of the university, and we're, like any other organization, I think we're anticipating some renewal, and excited about that too.
And you got to tell the students, just because we're having some things going on in the president's office, you still have to go to class.
Right, you have to take your finals. Nobody gets a. There's some sort of urban legend that if we have a leadership change, everybody gets an A on their classes. No, we've the students are really hunkered down. I have to tell you, the other big surprise on campus, I forgot how the Hellgate winds blow through that campus. And I have been bundled up and shivering a lot of the time over there because I forgot about that when I was a student. When I was a student, one of the few times in the university's history, they closed the campus and the food service. They delivered pizza to the dorms my freshman year.
Wow.
Because it was 70 below with the wind chill factor.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So I had a little bit of history. I've been around more years than I care to admit.
Yeah.
But
if you'd like, I'd be happy to regale you with my wonderful 1 year at the University.
We should absolutely do that. We've got time for that this morning.
1971.
Really?
Probably before you were born.
Oh, I was 1. Oh, now I've revealed my age. But yes, it was a long time. So you were a student then,
I was.
in that year.
I was 17 and a half years old. And I lived in 325 Corbin, which I don't even think
Corbin wasn't even a dorm when I got there.
Yeah. I hate to let the cat out of the bag, but my next door guy was a drug dealer.
Oh.
Ain't that sweet?
See, you have a different claim to fame. In my dorm, not my neighbor, but I rode the elevator in Jesse Hall with the legendary Shannon Schwain, of course, now. Wow. And I did not know that she was such a phenom on the basketball court for till I had a chance to see her play. And I'm like, wait, I ride the elevator with her back in my dorm. And we had exchanged niceties as we were riding the elevator, and then I see her on the basketball court. Oh my goodness, she's amazing. A complete powerhouse.
She could have picked me up and thrown me out the window.
Probably. Well, and good thing I was nice to her in the elevator. That's all I can say about that.
She might have done that to Peter the year before.
Maybe.
No, so the drug dealer, what was he trading in?
Well, let's put it this way. He used to have parties. Well, he would invite. He didn't invite me because it wasn't my thing. I didn't go with that crowd, if you know what I mean. But he would invite people over, and they would have these little capsules, and they would fill them with whatever they had in them, and then they would package them up and sell them.
That doesn't sound dangerous at all.
No.
I feel compelled at this point to go on record to say the University of Montana does not condone such recreational activities in the dormitories.
No kidding. Of course, that was 1971.
True.
It was a
different time.
And those were the days, if I may go back into time, when now you have Forebear and you've got, you can register online, get all your classes.
Yep.
When I went to school, okay, you had to go to the Adams Center.
I remember a giant cattle call.
You stood in line, and since my real last name starts with a W, I was at the very back.
Yep.
And by the time I got to the front, all the classes I needed were gone. And so you end up with courtship and marriage and underwater basket weaving and, whatever. I mean, whatever else was available.
Well, and I tell my kids, and I'm sure that they think that I'm just ancient, but I tell my kids, we go to the Grizz games, and I say, when Mommy was a student here, there were no bleachers in the end zones. There was no seating in the end. The end zones were grass,
right? And
the students laid out in the hill at the north end zone specifically. And my 5-year-old said, "Was there electricity then?" Well, yes, there was electricity, but the stadium was different. And then, of course, when I came back after so many years, I felt like I needed to take a campus tour because you expect your campus to sort of stay the same as you always remembered it. And
where did all these new buildings come from?
They did. They moved some things and built some things. So I was getting 20,000 steps on the Fitbit because I was walking around asking directions. So, but thankfully, I'm better now. I think I've got it figured out.
Okay, we're up against our first break. Now that we're done reminiscing.
Sure.
By the way, we have all of our lines open. If you want to visit with the official spokesperson for the University of Montana, 721-1290 is our number. You have a question or a comment? I'm sure that Paula will take a stab at it.
Sure.
721-1290. We'll be right back. And we are back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. Paula Short joining us this morning. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I have a big question that's surrounding the change and the announcements, and it just seems like a weird time of year. I was hoping maybe you could kind of explain a little bit of some of the thinking that goes behind doing a presidential changeover like this, where you're losing one president and then having a gap of 5 to 6 months before a new one comes in, right before a legislative session. That seemed really odd to me. I was hoping maybe someone from the university could help me figure that out.
Well, and I will tell you, those decisions are certainly made above my pay grade, if you will. So I don't know exactly, that process of how to do that. But certainly, we find ourselves in this position where we've got an interim president coming in that is very well known to the Missoula community and to the University of Montana. In fact, one other trivia thing that I actually reminded Dr. Stearns about as she's transitioning in over at Main Hall is, for me, it's getting the same boss 27 years apart, because when I was a student at the University of Montana, I was an intern for Sheila Stearns, who was then the vice president for university relations. And so I certainly knew who she was. I had worked with her as a student, worked for her, I should say, as a student. And she has all of her degrees from U of M. Of course, she's been in the leadership at the University of Montana, but she has also been a president at another institution. She was a chancellor at Western, and she was the commissioner of higher education here in Montana. So talk about somebody that is well equipped to come in and super knowledgeable. So I guess, John, to speak to your point, it is, I think anytime you have transition, there are things about it that make it unique. I think, with the legislature coming up, with it being middle of the year, but in the same breath, I would say that I think Dr. Sheila Stearns is the person that can come in and make that transition as seamless as possible.
So how much authority would she have, or is she going to have, when it comes to kind of guiding the lobbying efforts of the University of Montana when the session comes up?
My assumption is that she will have, the full authority that the University of Montana president would have during the session. I am the lobbyist for U of M, so I will be over at the session quite a bit, and I will be working with her. So it'll be everything from, I think, providing testimony to committees, providing clarifying information, answering questions, making sure that we have the information that we need for the session moving forward.
Now, in our conversations, one of the things that we have heard in the upcoming legislative session is that for over a decade now, the tuition at the University of Montana and university system has been frozen. And so it hasn't kept pace with inflation simply because we want kids to be able to come here and go to school and be affordable. So the legislature has provided extra funds for that. But we are facing what may be a pretty good sized shortfall in various ways, and that may come to an end. So is that something that you guys are prepared to argue for or against?
Well, I think when you're talking about the tuition, being able to keep a cap on tuition, which we have done for so many years, I mean, the first thing we do have to acknowledge is the state investment in the legislature and how they have invested in higher education to try to keep those costs affordable. I think when you look at the University of Montana against peer institutions, we are certainly one of the most economical places to get a degree. As far as what that holds for tuition for the upcoming year, I mean, I think there are some unknowns. We have to find out where we end up with the Montana legislative session. Those are discussions, I think, between the commissioner's office and the leaders of the session moving forward, and then of course tuition is sort of a regent's decision that will happen in the spring as well. So I think there are some unknowns and some things need to fall into place. One thing for sure, we certainly at the university want to see that all Montanans and really any student gets the benefit of a U of M education, and that cost is not a barrier to them coming and studying at the university. So the short answer is that, we continue to be mindful of cost of education and do what we can to provide a superior product at a great cost.
So here on Talkback, we have a lot of the liberal arts folks come on. We have the philosophy show, we have history shows, and they're all very, very scared. It sounds like that the humanities are going to face this big axe, that they're going to fall under the gun when things don't go the way that the university needs them to financially. And I know a lot of them are looking for reassurance that that's not going to happen.
Well, I can tell you just last week, Commissioner Clay Christian addressed the Faculty Senate over at the university. I was there, so I can tell you firsthand that question was brought up, in fact, in a very pointed fashion, specifically about the humanities and what decisions may already have been made or would be made. And I think the commissioner did a very nice job in responding to that. And what he said was, I don't know why folks have that necessarily predetermined decision, because that's not a discussion that's been happening. I mean, we are not at a point where we're going in and saying, we're picking and choosing programs. Far from it, in fact. And I think the commissioner added, as he was speaking, said, as we talk about program prioritization or looking at programs, it's not as simple as we're going to put together some metrics and boy, if you're at the bottom of the list, then it's not good news for you. To the contrary, he said, there may be programs that because of their societal benefit or benefit to the institution, regardless of where they fall in whatever metric you're using, they're an important part of the institution. And I think, the University of Montana has a legacy of providing a superior liberal arts education. I've not heard any discussion that we're abandoning that. To the contrary, in fact, I think that's an area that we are going to continue to focus on for academic excellence.
Gotcha. So as we pursue this big change, a new president coming in, what are you hearing as some of the main things that they are looking for in a president? What are some of the skill set that they're hoping to bring to the University of Montana, frankly, that might not have been there? What's different? I mean, obviously, someone wanted to change. What needs to change as far as the leadership goes?
Well, I think two things. One is I think it's important to not necessarily make that correlation of the previous president was X and the next president is Y. But I would put the question back to you to say that the commissioner is having these listening sessions. They are today and tomorrow on the campus. And what we want to hear is what other folks think. Our faculty, students, staff, the general public, the business community, our local elected officials. So we want to hear some of the things that they want in this national search for the next president.
Oh, I have a request.
Okay.
I have a request. So my request from the next president is that they would be much more open to the media than President Engstrom was or is. I think in the last 8 years, other than approaching him with your audio camera, only one appearance on Talkback, it's a long time to go without having regular intervals of and when we call in, not that Peggy Coor or yourself aren't great to talk to, but we usually just get the public information officer. It'd be nice to get the president himself sometime to speak on behalf of the university.
What I would love for you to do is to send an email to the email inbox that we have set up that is dedicated to getting exactly that kind of feedback. I will take that back as well. But search at umontana.edu, and if you all would post that on your website, I know you get a lot of hits on the website and social media. That mailbox is dedicated to getting input from folks on what their vision is, what they would like to see in the next president. So the email address and then a number of meetings. The public forum is tonight at 5:15 over at the UC Theater, and we hope to see everybody there.
Let me make sure I got that right. Search at umontana.edu?
Yep.
All right. I'll post it on our Facebook page so everyone listening doesn't have to remember. You can just go click on it and
okay, we're going to be
email it.
We're going to be right back. 721-1290 is our number. I'd love to have some calls. Hello! Mike's on, I believe. We're going to come right back in just a moment. And we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. About 2.5 minutes in this particular segment. Let's get right to the phone and say good morning to Pete. Pete, you're on with Paula Short. Hi.
Good morning, and Paula, nice to hear you on the radio. I won't be able to attend this forum.
Okay.
But I did want to express, I think, what three important qualities we need to have is somebody with higher education experience in management, also someone with the skill set of management in higher education, and also development and fundraising skills in education. And also the interpersonal communication skills that go along with that, I think would be very valuable. I think what we had in charge was a very nice individual that was missing some skill sets and wasn't fair to him or to the institution.
Okay,
great.
Pete.
And I have written those down, and I encourage you to email, but I will also take those comments back as well. I've written them down this morning. Thank you.
All right, so that's one of the things we're doing here today. Unfortunately, Paula can't stay much longer past 9 o'clock, so we only have about a minute and a half. So as we wrap up our time together, so as you move forward, what are you going to be working on? Especially are you preparing now for the legislative session? And how are you getting all ready for that?
I am. So I've put together a giant 3-ring binder that has, the budget and long-range building plans and all of those types of things moving forward. So I will be spending a fair amount of time over in Helena. And so I'm working on that and, of course, continuing to work on the communications at the university and really communicating about this transition. I promise to come back when I can stay longer. I'm leaving only because we've got these listening sessions, and I hope that you'll let folks know the public forum again tonight at 5:15. But I think the commissioner has been very intentional about wanting to hear from all of these audiences and stakeholders. And so really starting at 9 o'clock this morning and going until 6 o'clock tonight, we have identified we're going to hear from staff. We're going to hear from contract professionals. We're going to hear from faculty. We're going to hear from the cabinet. We're going to hear from the executive committee of the Senate. We're going to hear from students. In fact, a big forum for students this afternoon at 4 o'clock. And so I'll be continuing to work on that and just sort of looking for messaging. I feel like as the communications person, that is a two-way street. As I want to talk about the good things going on at the university, but more importantly, I want to hear from everybody so that I can bring that back.
And we're out of time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to come right back. We have a whole another hour of open phones, so you stay with us here on Talkback. Okay, here we are. We appreciate Paula being with us for the first half hour of the show. Definitely going to get down there at 5:30 and check out the public forum, see what kind of things people want to ask.
See all the people yelling at clouds?
Yeah. Hello.
Why didn't you fix the VA?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. All right. So I understand that you have been mining some very interesting audio for us.
I have audio, and of course it is open phones. There's a bunch of news going on out there, interesting stuff. For example, I thought this was kind of seasonal. So
okay.
The headline, 4 big retailers sued over allegedly deceptive ads.
No.
Have you ever seen an ad that wasn't deceptive?
Isn't that the whole idea?
That's kind of the whole point,
to get you out of your money, right? Yeah, that's yeah.
So this is prosecutors in Los Angeles on Thursday sued 4 national retailers, accusing them of duping shoppers into believing they got bigger discounts than they actually did. The separate lawsuits alleging deceptive advertising were filed against JCPenney, Sears, Kohl's, and Macy's. So basically, everybody that's vacated Missoula, except for Cole, according to the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office, customers have the right to be told the truth about the prices they're paying and to know if a bargain is really a bargain. Foyer said the retailers falsely advertised higher regular prices for merchandise, so customers believed they were getting bigger bargains.
Save.
Okay, so every single department store probably jacks up their price and then has a 50% off sale, right?
Well, everybody do that?
Does that open you up for a lawsuit?
Doesn't everybody do? You pick a retail. Is it cars, appliances, whatever? I mean, the whole idea is save. You know, like, well, what do you mean save?
I don't know
how much.
This is like the lawsuit against the woman that haggles at the garage sale, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
No, you told me it was 50% off.
I'll give you 50 cents for it. Well, here's another thing. Speaking of commerce, okay?
Okay.
I think this is fascinating. Buying things online. See, my wife is a big-time shopper, and she loves to go out to the stores, and she says it's so eerie because she goes to the stores. It's Christmas, right?
Yeah.
And she walks into stores, and there's crickets. I mean, there's nobody there. And everybody's buying things online, or they'll go to the store, they'll look at the price, and then they'll go back and buy it online.
I bought stuff online last night because I can't find 30-second sand timers in Missoula.
But check this out. Buying things online could get much more expensive after the U.S. Supreme Court rejected a case that could ultimately lead to states collecting billions of dollars in sales taxes lost to increasingly popular internet retailers. The court would not hear a challenge to a Colorado law requiring online sellers such as Amazon.com to notify customers and the state how much they owe in taxes. State officials have estimated that Colorado alone has been missing out on as much as $172 million a year. At least 3 other states, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Vermont, have passed similar laws. Though the court didn't endorse Colorado's law, it could even weigh in against it if given a different case. Other states are likely to see yesterday's move as a green light to step up collection efforts. That comes despite a 1992 Supreme Court decision saying retailers must have a physical presence in the state before officials can make them collect sales taxes. Okay? Like, for instance, if Amazon.com. They don't have an office in Missoula or Montana, do they?
No,
of course not.
Not to my knowledge.
Unless you count the post office, which does all the deliveries for Amazon now. Sure, they do. Online shoppers always have owed now check this out. Online shoppers have always owed state sales taxes on their purchases. Because, except in Montana, we don't have a sales tax. But let's say if you lived in Idaho or,
Well, if you bought medical marijuana in Montana next year, maybe. If
anyway,
Governor Bullock gets his way.
But the rule has been widely ignored. States have spent years examining ways to try to capture those lost tax dollars, but their options are limited when the retailers are not based in the state. So what could happen here, okay, I realize Montana, we don't have a sales tax, but other states could be able, let's say I live in Idaho and I order something from Amazon.com, okay? And I could have gotten it at any retail store in Idaho or Napa or whatever, Napa, Idaho or Boise or whatever. But instead, I ordered it from Amazon.com, and it cost $150, right? And it gets shipped to my home. And all of a sudden, Idaho can attach a sales tax to that and collect it from me while I'm paying. What do you guys think? Is that,
I think internet was fun having you, but the government's going to kill you.
I don't know. It's just one of those things. And when you look at the brick and mortar stores, increasingly, the big malls and the large, shopping centers, increasingly fewer and fewer cars as people, because they offer free shipping. They offer, you can send it back and no return charge. People are doing that.
Well,
because everybody wants to save money.
There are lots of, dangers and risks to sell things online. For example, like you said, people don't pick it up. People don't receive it. People don't pay for it.
Right.
And so, I don't know. It's an iffy one. Obviously we live in Montana, so Montana would benefit probably if there was sales tax in other states because people would relocate their internet companies to Montana.
Anyway, 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. We're up against our first break, but you found what you and I both independently came up with.
Calculus.
This particular individual is the Glenn Beck of the left. Because whenever I hear this man speak, I think of Glenn Beck with his, Chicken Little, the sky is falling, attitude. And that's what Glenn Beck has become.
But this is totally different. In this guy's case, this is Keith Olbermann we're talking about.
Right.
The sky has fallen. America is no longer a free country.
Really? Okay. Well, we're going to get to that. So stay with us. This is going to be an extremely entertaining 4.5 minutes for you to listen to Keith Olbermann. So we'll be right back. Okay, we are back. This is Talk Back. Got open phones going on, but you have found some particularly intriguing audio.
Yeah,
here.
so GQ, I think it's Gentleman's Quarterly,
right?
As in they quartered a gentleman and just turned him into a leftist
all
big city moper.
All you have to do is look at me to see, GQ right here.
Right there. Anyway, they have this bit called The Resistance by Keith Olbermann, and this is one of the segments from it. And literally, I was kind of surprised. Like, you hear people freaking out on the left over Trump's rule.
Right.
Well, Keith has crossed the line. He thinks we no longer have a free country.
Well, see, Keith Olbermann used to be a big-time presence on ESPN, but he kept getting more and more political, and they had to bump him off of there. And then finally, he became what he really wanted to be. He was a political commentator. Huh. So here we go. This is Keith Olbermann, and away we go.
We are at war with Russia. Or perhaps more correctly, we have lost a war with Russia without a battle.
Wow.
We are no longer a sovereign nation. We are no longer a democracy. We are no longer a free people. We are the victims of a bloodless coup. So far, a bloodless coup engineered by Russia with, at best, the traitorous indifference of the Republican Party and Donald John Trump, a man who, to borrow a phrase from another December long ago, will live in infamy. In 5 weeks' time, unless desperate measures are taken, we will hand over the government to a man who lost the popular vote by more than Woodrow Wilson or Jimmy Carter won it, a man whom the Russians wanted to run our country for them, a man whom the Russians got to run our country for them, a man for whom the Russians interfered with our elections, which, if we did it to another country, would be described as an act of war. And in this country, we have conceded defeat. Some experts, John Kasich's strategist, John Weaver for one, have compared this to Pearl Harbor. Even the hard-right ex-Congressman Joe Walsh says Republican silence will be tantamount to treason. Some others, too, have proved courageous. Trump, self-destructive to the last, issued a childish statement mocking the CIA, but as Tim Dickinson of Rolling Stone noted, not denying anything. But the vast majority of Republicans have said nothing. And the vast majority of Democrats have said nothing. And the vast majority of the media has said nothing of substance. And the president has said nothing close to enough. The CIA and FBI and Homeland Security, the institutions whose interest in freedom we on the left most frequently distrust, they have said something. They said it first to congressional and Senate Republicans in September. Dire warnings, warnings that Mitch McConnell and other Republicans reportedly buried, warnings that the Russians, using computer hacking and perhaps other means, were not merely trying to discredit the election, but to achieve the specific outcome of electing their man Trump. And finally, at the very last hour, some of those who did those briefings and some of those who received those briefings leaked the details to the New York Times, the Washington Post, CBS News, Reuters, in a torrent of anguished honesty. They said something. They said something as the president-not-elect began to veer towards appointing as Secretary of State, as our diplomatic face to the world, the CEO of Exxon, who 4 years ago received the Order of Friendship from Vladimir Putin. They said something as the members of the Electoral College prepared to gather next Monday to finalize this coup. Some, perhaps unaware that almost half the states they represent permit them by law to vote for someone other than the candidate to whom they are pledged, and that only 38 of them need to do so to prevent this coup. They said something as one especially chilling detail in one of the reports sailed by, that, quote, the Russians hacked the Republican National Committee's computer systems in addition to their attacks on Democratic organizations, but did not release whatever information they gleaned from the Republican networks. It is a short leap from that conclusion, and it is anything but a conspiracy theory to be wondering if the Russians hacked the RNC and have kept what they found there to make sure Trump and the Republicans obeyed. How much worse can it get by telling America the unvarnished, unprocessed, unredacted truth about this coup? We are already on the precipice of losing the freedom and independence of the nation. He must tell us so that we may defend ourselves. He must tell the electors of the Electoral College so that, microscopic as the chance may be, they could still prevent this cataclysm. There is no time for a full review or a measured analysis or recommendations to prevent interference in our future elections, because permitting Donald Trump to assume the office of president reduces the chance that we will have any future elections. The nation and all of our freedoms hang by a thread, and the military apparatus of this country is about to be handed over to scum who are beholden to scum, Russian scum. As things are today, January 20th will not be an inauguration, but rather the end of the United States as an independent country. It will not be a peaceful change of power. It will be a usurpation, and the usurper has no validity, no credibility, and no authority under the Constitution. This is a reality that will become the only reality until this country rids itself of Donald John Trump. He is not a president. He is a puppet put in power by Vladimir Putin.
Wow.
And those who ignore these elemental existential facts, Democrats or Republicans, are traitors to this country and will immediately and forever after be held accountable.
Okay. Well, there's only one thing that needs to be done there.
What?
Barack Obama needs to seize control of the country.
Actually, so
and get rid. The election. If this is true, the election didn't happen, and that means that Barack Obama needs to stay in the White House and grab control. And who needs a constitution? We don't need a constitution. Heavens to Betsy. We've got a perfectly good president in there now. If the guy that wasn't elected properly, let's just keep the guy we've got, for crying out loud. Okay. All right, 72112. The lines are filling up, so we're going to get to we're up against a break here. So Bruce and Pete and Eric and whoever else is on line 4, 721-1290. If you can't get through on the phones, that was quite the diatribe, wasn't it? That was quite the monologue. Anyway, we can also make your comments on our Facebook page and go. Yeah.
No, lest you think that this is one guy out there freaking out. Right. Even Harry Reid the other day said basically, Trump only won because of collusion between Vladimir Putin and the
it couldn't possibly,
and the FBI director, James Comey. He couldn't
possibly have won the election, because the people wanted him to be president. No, that can't be acceptable. It's got to be some nefarious underground. The Russians did it. Oh, for heaven's sake, grow up. And just go sit in the corner and let the grown-ups take charge, okay?
It's an interesting twist on McCarthyism, it seems to me, right? You have this period where the right was all freaking out that the left was going to take over America through its institutions and through political. By the way, they were trying to. And then now the left is arguing that the right is taken over by the Russians.
Exactly the same thing. Okay, we're up against a break. 721-1290. Bruce and Pete and Eric, we'll get to you guys in a moment. We are back, and this is Talk Back. 721-1290 is our number. Thought you might enjoy that. That was 4.5, almost 5, but you shortened it.
I did. It's actually like a 7-minute rant.
Wow. Amazing. Okay, so let's get to the phones. Everybody wants to comment, and Bruce, you're up first. Go ahead.
Well, good morning. Merry Christmas, guys.
Same to you.
Merry Christmas.
Now, I seem to remember a couple years ago, didn't the Democrats have a bunch of people in Israel to try to keep Netanyahu from getting elected?
Yeah, a lot of the people from Obama's election team went down to Israel to try to fight to, basically get the other guy in that race promoted,
Oh, man. Well, thanks for making my ears bleed with that stretch, by the way.
You're welcome. By the way, President Obama also involved himself in the recent deal in England, the big
the Brexit, right?
Yeah.
Brexit, he was telling them what to do.
I will say, though, that's quite a bit different than hacking into if the Russians actually did do the hacking into the DNC, if they have hacked the RNC, that's a little bit more maleficent.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the call, sir. Appreciate that. And Pete, you are up next. Hi.
KGVO, this is John.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me again.
Sure.
Two brief comments. One, I think that I heard on the national news the other evening that somebody in the FBI has given a written comment to the Republican National Committee that there's no evidence of them having been hacked.
Yeah, so this is the thing. It's interesting. The FBI and the CIA disagree on this, from what I can tell. The people in the FBI say it didn't happen, or they didn't.
Yeah.
The CIA thinks it did. Other people have said that someone went in and false flagged the hack to make it look like Russia, which would be genius. So there's and really nobody knows, I don't think, 100% sure what's going on. Of course, it really helps the left to associate the right with Russia, because they've been associated with communism and socialism for so long. They're kind of feeling they need to throw this burden off somewhere down the line.
Fair play. All right. Well,
and
thanks.
then on the local issue,
Yeah.
I think something that's somewhat getting circumspect of late is our water company and its inability to get the financing in place at a good rate
Well, they're working on that.
because their lack of management experience, et cetera. Any normal person, you and I are going to go out and buy a car. We usually make sure our financing is in order first, and what the car is going to cost. If you recall, the mayor once said legal costs will be about $300,000.
It was the original estimate was $400,000. It's more than $10 million now.
Yeah, and then to go into a situation like this for condemnation, not have your financing lined up. And then they were very critical of the $2 million a year going to California to the holding company for administrative fees. Wait till they start paying the fees and interest on this to a bonding company in New York who far exceed that.
All right. Well, thanks for the call, sir. Appreciate that. All right. Go ahead.
I mean, honestly, you see what happened. Obviously, he didn't know he had no clue. Our leadership had no clue what the cost of this would be. And frankly, they probably didn't care.
It was just, it's got to get done. In other words, the need overcame the necessity to ask, can we afford to do this? Eric is up next. Hi, Eric.
Yeah, I like Keith Olbermann when he used to do the sports with Dan Patrick.
Oh, yeah, he was great.
They were quite a funny pair. But, something I brought up yesterday about Christianity is one of the things that Christians are commanded to do is to be unbiased. And to make a proper judgment. And that's one thing that I believe that the American culture is afflicted with, is their inability to make an unbiased judgment. And there are several things that Mr. Olbermann said that were correct. The United States has embraced almost every plank of the Communist Manifesto. But the problem is that we're playing pin the tail on the donkey, and it just depends on who the donkey is today. Both Republicans and Democrats have implemented portions of the Communist Manifesto over years. And we've been robbed of our freedom incrementally for a very long time. And it didn't just begin with Trump. We don't know what he's going to do. And it didn't just begin with Obama. And people need to realize this. Anyway, there's my comment. Thanks.
Right. Thanks for the call, Eric. Appreciate that. All right. Dave, thanks for calling. Dave, what's on your mind?
Yes, what bothers me about Donald Trump's statement is, he says he doesn't believe the CIA. Absolutely. That means he believes Julian Assange. Well, that's...
Or the FBI.
Or the FBI. And as such, maybe, Donald Trump should appoint Julian Assange in charge of the CIA.
Wow.
Well, here's the thing this is the argument that you hear from some of the people. I mean, just regular, everyday folks that are out there. A lot of people believe, and it has proven to be true in many of these other bureaucracies, that the president has so infiltrated with his appointments and his positioning of people high up in these administrations that they're so politicized now that even things like the CIA can't be unbiased. Things like the IRS, which has proven in the past to be biased.
Oh, absolutely.
Or things like even the Treasury Department have proven to have some tent. You get this kind of sense that things have been set up to go in one direction.
Okay, and with that,
Yeah,
go ahead, Dave.
But one more point, Donald Trump's nonprofit organization illegally gave money to a best friend of Putin. So there's some connections there that I don't understand yet. We need to get to the bottom of.
Okay, Dave, thanks for the call.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. 721-1290 is our number. Lines are filling up again, and we're going to take a little break. We have Mike, and we have Marilyn, and we have...
2 lines open?
2 lines open.
Peter's counting. It's early.
What's my 1, 2? Okay, do the horse thing. 1, 2. Okay, we have 2 lines open at 721-1290. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back on Talkback. 721-1290 is the number. Let's get right to the phones, because that's what we do here, being a talk show. Mike, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Yeah, good morning, guys. I just had a couple quick points. First of all, so this was not the official CIA position. It came from an anonymous source.
That's a good point.
Seems to me that I remember when there was an official position from the CIA, the quote was "slam dunk," if I remember correctly. So that kind of brings their information into question.
No,
I would say.
Hold on, Mike. A slam dunk
Sure.
for what? In what
For
respect?
the fact that there was weapons of mass destruction located in Iraq. That was supposedly a slam dunk, wasn't it?
Okay.
Next thing is, isn't the CIA just like basically one of their tasks is they're the propaganda arm of the United States government?
Well, actually, the CIA, the FBI and the CIA are unfriendly neighbors because the CIA is only allowed to investigate outside the borders, and the FBI are the ones that are tasked with investigating things inside the borders.
And then 9/11 happened, and now they're supposed to be sharing information.
Yeah, now they're supposed to be buddy-buddy, and it's never quite worked out.
Right, and so also they just changed the law. The CIA was prohibited from contributing to propaganda or let's just call it fake news, I guess. Fake news in the United States, but that law was changed. So now people are allowed to propagate these false narratives.
What law are you talking about?
Well, this whole thing that's going on in the media now, accusing certain news outlets to be putting out fake news stories.
Yeah,
you haven't heard about that?
I've heard about that, but I haven't heard the CIA's involvement with all that.
Well, what my point is that the law basically. There used to be a law in place, and I don't have the source with me right now, but this is all, people can look into this on their own. I'm not telling them to believe me. I'm saying people should use their own intellect to figure this stuff out. But there's a story out there that basically said that the law had been changed, and that the law that was prohibiting the CIA from pushing propaganda through our media sources in the United States, that law's changed now, and now they're free to do that. So I just wondered if they were so concerned with fake news stories, why did they change that law? That's kind of beside the point. But I guess I just like to finish by saying that, when you're taking information from anonymous news sources and running with them, it just kind of rings in the realm of conspiracy theory to me.
All right. Well, thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Bye.
it, sir. Marilyn, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Good morning. So the Democrats are having a fit because who the Democrats are, Hillary Clinton and the DNC and Podesta, that all came out with those emails. And it's typical. They want to distract us and still continue to deceive us by having, again, a false narrative. They are the bearers of the fake news. They always have been. And that's who they are. They're going to continue to lie. And we need to go back and keep playing those emails that were released to keep reminding people, I guess, that who the Democrats are and that they should never, ever hold office again.
Okay, thanks, Marilyn.
Yep.
All right, 721-1290 is our number. Opinions galore. And that's really what we do here on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. 1-800-568-5300.
Okay, I found what our caller was talking about.
Okay, go ahead.
So he's talking about, you've heard of Radio Free Europe, you've
Right.
heard of Voice of America, those things. These are, we used heavily during the Cold War. They still run. We
Sure.
pump sound waves into North
Right.
Korea, for example.
Right.
Anyway, they've repealed the Smith-Mundt Act, a longstanding piece of legislation that had been amended numerous times over the years, perhaps most consequentially by Arkansas Senator William Fulbright. In the 70s, Fulbright was no friend of Voices of America and Radio Free Europe and moved to restrict them from domestic distribution, saying that, quote, they should be given the opportunity to take their rightful place in the graveyard of Cold War relics, end quote. Fulbright's amendment to Smith-Mundt was bolstered in 1985 by Nebraska Senator Edward Zirinsky, who argued that such propaganda should be kept out of America as to distinguish the U.S., quote, from the Soviet Union, where domestic propaganda is a principal government activity, end quote. Anyway, basically, it sounds like they would allow these to be broadcast here, or for Americans to hear them now.
Well, it would be interesting to find a Voice of America broadcast or a Radio Free Europe broadcast and play it and see what our listeners think of it. What would it say? Your leaders are lying to you. Come over. Seriously, I've never heard one, so I don't know exactly what the content
apparently
would
now
be.
that we can go try to find one.
Well, let's do that. Let's do that. Okay, and Bobby, let's get Bobby on. I don't want to make her wait. Bobby, go ahead. What's up?
Well, they talk about Trump's Secretary of State picks. And I've watched Obama's two Secretary of State, Hillary and John Kerry, and I've watched how much they respect the U.S. Navy, as in Russian fighter planes flybys within 30 feet of U.S. Navy ships, and the Iranians, flybys.
Well, not only that, the Iranians captured one of our naval vessels,
right, and took them prisoners,
and interrogated them, and took equipment, all completely illegal according to international law.
And then Kerry thanked the Iranians for the great treatment of our sailors. So they're talking about how bad a pick Trump has made.
Wow.
I can't see that Hillary or Kerry have done anything good. So I don't think it could get any worse than that.
Let me. We're going to let you go. Thanks, Bobby. Appreciate that. Let me posit something. Let me just throw this out here. Let's just say, let's just suspend reality for a moment, and let's say that somehow the Keith Olbermanns of the world were able to convince enough people in power that we need to look at this election and do a redo, and then have Hillary Clinton be either proclaimed or elected somehow.
Well, you should know what Keith Olbermann's goal is.
Right.
His goal is to get the truth out before Monday when the Electoral College meets to make the vote, and sway the opinions of 35 members of the Electoral College.
If that were to happen, okay, and they somehow were able to delay what was going on, and Donald Trump was not allowed to become president of the United States, I'm telling you what, I think there would be a huge uprising in this country. I really do.
Against who?
Against the powers that be, who are able to do this kind of stuff. Anyway, 721-1290 is our number. All four lines are open. Anyway.
By the way, every single state, you have the ability to limit your Electoral College voters. Most states have chosen not to do that.
Okay, we're going to come right back. All right. The ground's already shaken. Okay, sorry, I got carried away. John King's over there. I'm Peter Christian. All four lines open, 721-1290. John and I were just talking during the break.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say that Keith Olbermann's wish came true, okay? And they went and redid everything, and there were so many hundreds of thousands, if I dare say millions of people, who so believed in what love him or hate him, who so believed in what Donald Trump was saying, that brought them out of people who had not voted in 20, 30, 40, or had never voted before, came out and voted. And if something like that happened, I would estimate that people like that, millions and millions of people would just say, you know what? Screw the system. Screw it. Forget it. I'm not going to participate at all. You guys have already decided who the winners are going to be. Our votes don't matter. Our opinions don't matter. So, do your thing, whatever. We are out of it. We are out of it. And that would be exactly what he prophesied, the end of America as we know it. Would I be right or not?
Well, I mean, yet you'd have certainly less people involved. I think it would make people a little upset about the process.
Upset?
But frankly, people already misunderstand the process. People just do not understand how elections are done in the United States.
Right. They don't understand the electoral college.
The Democrats still think it's by popular vote. They're so confused that we even have an electoral college.
Right.
You can just listen to them talking about every time. Well, Hillary won the popular vote. Okay. Well, the Grizz threw 4 more yards than the Bobcats. They still lost in the last game, right? Because it's touchdowns that matter. It's like they haven't got around to seeing the way that the system works. And frankly, our system, the Electoral College, has the ability. The states have the ability to restrict their members. Many of them have chosen not to do that. They haven't passed the laws. They've let their Electoral College members be free agents, basically. And they set themselves up for it. If that happens, that was part of the system. And states could have controlled it, but they didn't.
Okay. Well, let's put it this way. Maybe I'm just too old.
Maybe not old enough. If you were 1775 or 1776, you would have been a part of these discussions.
Let's get Emmett on the line. Good morning, Emmett. What's up?
Oh, thanks for taking my call. Well, I completely agree with you, Peter. If, let's say, they did just mess up the whole Electoral College and just give it to Hillary, there'd be a huge uprising. I'd be part of that uprising. And I guess
hold on a second. Let me ask you this.
What?
When I say there'll be an uprising, I may have spoken too soon because I don't know exactly what form that, quote, uprising would take. You know, would it simply be people protesting on the streets? Would it be, I'm done with voting, I'm no longer a Republican, I'm no longer a Democrat, I am done with the political process. You guys have lied to me from the beginning. My vote doesn't really count, and so I am simply not ever going to vote again. I'm done. It's finished. You guys do whatever you want, you know, and I just won't follow along anymore.
Yeah, I don't know what form it would take, but I think it proves the point I was going to make. It really angers me, this whole talk that the Russians hacked our elections and stole our elections and influenced our elections. It wasn't the Russians. It was the millions of people that voted for Trump here in the United States. The rallies at Trump rallies, if you'll remember, were huge and massive. And the energy, like you said, people who haven't voted in 20, 30, 40 years coming out for the first time because they loved Donald Trump. It's like the liberals and the Democrats don't seem to understand it as we, the people, that voted for Donald Trump. We weren't just a few people in hillbilly, somewhere in the Midwest. It was all over the place. It wasn't the Russians. They want to blame anybody, but the fact that they had their own failed candidate, Hillary Clinton, who no one really wanted, you know.
There were obviously people that did want Hillary.
Oh yeah,
well,
absolutely.
There were many other, but obviously the Electoral College went to Donald Trump. Yeah,
so on Facebook,
cities did want Hillary.
Susie, for example, says Hillary won the popular vote. I would be thrilled if the Electoral College switched from their votes. Now, here's what would happen if those in the states where the Electoral College, because we would get to know this,
right?
The Electoral College members that chose to vote against the wishes of their state, those states, I think, would obviously be reformed. They would change. And by the way, Democrats, they may really, really want to win this election. They really don't want to ruin the institutions of the United States, I don't believe. And this, you're right on this. I think it would. It would overall, people would be depressed about the way the system works. They would be upset.
Forget it.
That the Electoral College system isn't designed right or whatever. They would overhaul or want to overhaul the system.
Anyway, we're going to take a break. 1 minute timeout. Well, there we go. So we'll be right back after this 1 minute timeout. Okay, we're back. This is Talk Back. Got about 7.5 more minutes. We're just kicking this thing around. If you listen to Keith Olbermann's rant, which we didn't even play the whole thing, he's firmly convinced that the Russians hacked and basically stole our election. He posited his belief that a bloodless coup has taken place in America and that we no longer control our own political process. And so he's hoping somehow that cooler minds will prevail and, all that stuff.
I think that there is a fear out there, and I don't think it's necessarily an illegitimate fear, that a foreign country would try to influence the U.S. election. I do not agree that is the only thing that led to Trump's victory. Hillary was a super flawed candidate. You can't leak information about leaked information on a server without someone actually setting up a private server and leaking the information.
And
right?
not only that, but they didn't deny the content of the emails. The emails were all true.
Right. but regardless, even if it is true, right? If you're being hacked by a foreign interest,
right.
That's a dangerous place for America to be. We don't want foreign influence peddling in the United States. I think we should investigate, make sure Russia wasn't involved. I bet you they tried to get involved. I bet you them, along with a whole bunch of different hackers, were involved. Frankly, I think everybody's hands were in the cookie jar because idiots left the jar open and on the counter when mommy and daddy were sleeping.
There you go. Let's get back to the phones. Jerry, you are on Talkback. Hi.
Good morning. We have to keep in mind one thing. The fathers have set it up, or the founders set it up, that if there's any discrepancy at all in the electoral vote, it automatically goes to the House. And the House will then pick the president, which the House is controlled by Republicans.
Well, not any discrepancy at all. It has to come down to whether or not there's a majority or not.
Right. Well, if they're trying to take the majority away from Trump, then it would go to the House.
That's true. That's true. Well, I haven't done the math yet, but I think you're likely right that even if all 35 switched, it would still end up in the House. I think you're right on that.
And the left is just proving everybody's point. When they lose, they go crazy.
All right. Thanks for the call, sir. Appreciate that. All right. Dave, you're back. Hi.
Yeah, hi. Next time you have School District 1 superintendent of schools on, you ought to ask him, when do you teach, or if you ever do, teach the kids about the Electoral College? Put it to him.
That's a very good question. I think we'll do that. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Appreciate that. All right. Yeah, I'm sure they do. It's a part of basic civics, isn't it? Because people don't seem to understand it.
Well, the real question is to go back and ask all these baby boomers freaking out about it.
Right.
How the Electoral College works.
All right. Let's get the Gipper on. Good morning, Gipper. Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
If the vote was determined by popular vote, no one knows what the outcome would have been.
It's a good point.
Because the campaign would have been strategically different, and there's no way to say that Hillary would have won the popular vote if that had been the rules from the outset, because Trump could have campaigned heavily in areas where he avoided, like Los Angeles and New York, Chicago. He would have picked up some votes, and so it's like saying after a football game that the team that scored or made the most first downs won.
Yeah.
Well,
this is a really good point. I've been making the same one, but I want to add a little bit to it because
thanks for the call, sir.
One thing people don't realize about this whole popular vote argument is that all that popular vote goes away. If you just take California out of the equation,
right,
Trump also wins the popular vote. Now, here's the thing that's interesting about California, right? Huge state.
Right.
Okay. Well, their runoff, which people remember in Missoula when we only had Democrats on the ballot,
right,
for local elections,
yeah,
right?
for the sheriff's office.
Oh, that was their state.
Okay.
They have a runoff. They have a runoff primary election,
right,
or a final election. So it was a Democrat versus a Democrat,
right.
And so you had all the Democrats in the state, which is most of California, right, out there to vote for which Democrat they liked best.
Okay.
And an election year where nobody cared to advertise. Both Hillary and Donald didn't advertise at all in California. So it's all Democrats voting in this big election. Of course the vote's going to lean towards Hillary. Contrary, another big popular vote state where you would want, if you were going for the popular vote tactically, you'd want to get a lot of votes from Texas.
Right.
Okay, well, the states have elections on different cycles. Some go 4 years with the presidential election. Others will be in the off years, the intermittent 2 years, right? Well, Texas is an intermittent 2-year state. So they didn't have some big election where everyone needed to turn out to make sure their governor that they wanted or the legislator that they wanted was installed. they're going to do that in 2 years from now. So the turnout was less than it might be in the cycles. Basically, my point here is that, yeah, Hillary kind of won the popular vote, but the game was a different game than the popular vote game. And if the rules had been different, Trump very easily could have beat her at that too.
Well, I don't know. All I know is that all of a sudden, it just seems like all of a sudden that all the news organizations have glommed onto this one story and made it as though, oh my gosh, there's finally a chance, there's a glimmer of hope. And
well,
I'm just thinking,
here's a piece from Reuters.
Wow,
just
okay.
came out yesterday.
Okay.
This the title is exclusive. Top U.S. spy agency has not embraced the CIA assessment on Russian hacking.
Okay.
The piece is by Mark Hosenball and Jonathan Lanze. The overseers of the U.S. intelligence community have not embraced a CIA assessment that Russian cyber attacks were aimed at helping Republican presidential-elect Donald Trump win the 2016 election, 3 American officials said on Monday. While the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, also known as ODNI, does not dispute the CIA's analysis of Russian hacking operations, it has not endorsed their assessment because of a lack of conclusive evidence that Moscow intended to boost Trump over Democratic opponent Hillary Clinton, said the officials who declined to be named.
Okay. All right. We have 1 minute left on our fabulous radio program. We'll try to get one more quick call in if we can get him in 30 seconds. But I do understand that tomorrow on our fabulous radio program, Bob Seidenschwartz returning with the Montana World Affairs Council on the radio. He'll be with us from 8:30 until 10. So
we have time for Wes or no?
30 seconds, Wes, quickly. What's up?
Yeah, hey, for all these people crying about the popular vote, very few countries elect their leader by popular vote. For instance, Canada or Britain, you have to win the majority of the ridings in order to be the leader of the country. So all that popular vote nonsense is just nonsense.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
By the way, it's a nonsense way to run a country. You have tyranny by the majority if you have a popular vote system.
All right, and thanks so much for joining us, everybody. Been a great discussion. As always, you guys are awesome. And we'll do it again tomorrow, 6 o'clock on Montana Morning. Have a great day. It's